Hey, just the Zogby's on now? Oh, you're on mute, Jer. It says you're muted. You there?
We're going to start promptly in about a minute or two.
Is anybody else on?
Yep.
And I'm here. There we go.
Okay. Begin. Welcome everybody to the John Zogby Strategies EMI Research Solutions final poll of election 2020, our live town hall event. I'm Jeremy Zogby, partner at John Zogby Strategies. I'm joined by my dad, senior partner, John Zogby, and my brother, partner, and our general counsel, Ben Zogby. We also have here, among many other people, Mike Holmes, the CEO of EMI Research Solutions. Mike, first we have to thank you for this wonderful collaboration. We look forward to many more. We are joined by people all over the world, major networks, newspapers, embassies, as well as friends, family, and neighbors. So we're about to begin a PowerPoint on our latest poll here, which we fielded yesterday. And so these are the fresh results. We're going to go through about 17 slides, and then we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you look below, there's a Q&A box. You can drop your question once we're ready to start that after going through our presentation. But without further ado, Dad, why don't you kick us off with this PowerPoint, and then I'll jump back on. So I'm going to share my screen here.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming. And I'm just waiting. Here it is. Here's the PowerPoint. So let's just get started and look forward to your questions and your comments when we're done in about 15, 20 minutes. Okay, so let's take a look, first of all, what we did. EMI is our long-term online sampling partner since 2008. We've done actually hundreds of projects with them over the years. This was a nationwide online survey, and it was conducted yesterday. Margin of sampling error overall for the 1,008 likely voters is plus or minus 3.2 percentage points. Of course, the margin of error is higher for subgroups. Basically, you can see a full methodological statement on our website later. We'll have it posted on johnzogbystrategies.com. But essentially, we're working from a database of millions, 15 million emails, all with data points, already representative of the U.S. adult population. And from there, we take a random probability stratified by region survey or sampling of about 10,000 and send invitations to them to a secure website to prevent each respondent from taking the survey more than once. Subsets of the data, as I said, have a larger margin of error. We were engaged only in slight weights for age, gender, ideology, party, and race to be representative of the voting population of the United States. Okay, let's take a look. This is so important for pollsters, the turnout model that we used. So you have the demographics on the left-hand column. 2016 was what the exit polls showed were the percentages of turnout for each of these demographics. And then you have 2020 from our poll, what we used as a turnout model. Actually, male, female for 2020 was 47-53. And so sorry for the little typo there. But 18 to 29-year-olds during the last two elections had bumped up because starting with Barack Obama had gone from 17% of the total to 19% of the total because of high turnout among young people and because of the raw sample that came in. We bumped that up from 19 to 20. 30 to 44-year-olds, many of whom are millennials with a high turnout, 31%. 45 to 64-year-olds dropped, and the number of voters over 65 stayed the same. Democrats, we've had problems with other pollsters using too many Democrats and not enough Republicans. And so we settled in again with slight weights to be fair to both parties. 38% Democrat, 34 Republican, 28 independent. You'll note we ensured that Republicans were bumped up a point because we expect a high turnout of them on election day. The race sample, also because of high turnouts, from 71%, we use 69% white. Blacks at 13%, they were 0.9% in 2008, 13.1% in 2012, and then dropped to about 11.5% in 2016. That was with Hillary running and not drawing out that vote. We put it back up to Obama. Hispanics at 11%, Asians, whites, and so on. And then liberals, because of the growing number of young people identifying as liberal, we bumped that up because of their turnout from 26%, the total, to 27, dropped moderates down from 38 to 36. And I can't move this screen, I don't believe. Jared, can you raise it a little bit?
Nope.
Nope, I guess not. Well, conservatives came in raw at 35%, and we kept it basically the same at 34%. Okay, let's move on then. These are our final numbers. Joe Biden, 49. Donald Trump, 43. Joe Jorgensen, 4. Howie Hawkins, 2. And not sure, 2. These are the final decisions on the part of voters. And I want to point out at this point that the numbers were exact. 95% of Biden supporters and 95% of Trump supporters said that they will not be changing their minds. That, of course, included the bulk of the sample that had voted already and those who are definitely going to vote on November 3rd. Interestingly, where you see slightly higher numbers than other polls for Jorgensen, the Libertarian, and Hawkins, the Green, 25% of Jorgensen's voters said that they could still change their minds. And 51% of Hawkins voters said that they could change their mind. But that actual margin rounds out to 6 percentage points. But in reality, it's exactly a 5.6% differential between Biden and Trump. Let's move on. Now, early voters versus November 3rd voters. And in this instance, you should know that 57% of the sample said that they had already voted, and 43% will vote on election day. And overall, among early voters, no surprise, you have a 19-point lead by Joe Biden, 56 to 37. Among election day voters, you have Donald Trump leading 47 to 38. Now, what's interesting, in our October 2nd poll, Biden had led by 16 among early voters. Trump had led by 18 among election day voters. So some change and some movement there, at least in our polling. Next. Now, in order to win, Joe Biden needs to draw as much as possible from the winning coalition of Barack Obama. Let's see how he's faring. In 2012, among 18 to 29-year-olds, Obama won with 60 plus percent of the vote, 60 point something percent of the vote to 37 for Romney. Clinton had dropped to 55-37 among 18 to 29-year-olds, 2016. Our poll has Biden at 60 to 22 among this important 18 to 29-year-old group. And I should say that number is very close to the poll of 1,000 18 to 29-year-olds that we just completed for Forbes. Among Hispanics, Obama won with, these are according to the exit polls, with 71% to 27 for Mitt Romney. Hillary, 65 to 29 over Trump. Biden is at 56%, but Trump's numbers have actually gone down for a Republican to 25%. The all-important black vote with a high turnout, Obama, of course, this is 2012, 93 to 7. Hillary Clinton, 88 to 8. You see, here's a possible problem for Joe Biden, 78 to 13 among blacks. And lastly, women, part of the coalition, especially younger women. But Obama, 55 to 44, Hillary, 54 to 42, and Biden, 54 to 40. In some aspects, getting close to or matching the winning Obama coalition. In other aspects, maybe falling a little short. Let's look at the Trump coalition. Donald Trump won by 10 percentage points, or 8 percentage points, actually, according to the exit poll, among voters over 65, 53 to 45%. This time, he's leading in that group 51 to 46. And I'm just double checking that for a moment. Yes, 51 to 46. He's -2 from where he was. Among white voters, he won by 19 points, 58 to 37. This time it's by 13 points, 55 to 42. Among white evangelicals, he had won 81 to 16 4 years ago. He is now at 73 to 26. He's down 8 points. And lastly, among men, 53 to 41 in 2016, 53 to 46 in our poll, and in terms of his performance, no change. So you see that both men, of course, final votes are not in, but both men are either overperforming in a couple of instances for Biden and underperforming in all of these instances for Trump. Let me just share with you a couple of things that are not on the screen, and just a few. These are some groups that we think are important. For Biden, he leads among independents, but only by 5 points, 43 to 38. He leads among first-time voters, 53 to 27. That's very significant. I'll tell you why. Because first-time voters, bear with me. First-time voters are 1 in 5, 19% of the total vote, and Biden leads by 26 points. Among college-educated, Biden leads 55 to 39. And among the creative class, which we have been working with for about 20 years now, those who work in the knowledge sector, not as well as he should be performing, not Obama numbers, but 47 to 40, Biden leads. For Trump, weekly Walmart shoppers are a group we've been tracking since the late 90s. They were owned by George Bush. Then they were owned by Barack Obama. These days, Donald Trump is leading by 13 percentage points, 54 to 41 among weekly Walmart shoppers. Trump leads among those with no college degree, 48 to 44. Trump leads among Catholics, 54 to 43, and among self-identified investor class, 53 to 34. Okay, let's move on. Here are the top issues overall. There have been really no changes in terms of the nationwide sample. COVID-19 tops. Healthcare number 2, and we'll see why in a second. Jobs in the economy tied. Then racial justice 15, climate change 13, law and order 10, taxes in the budget 10. Now let's see how this breaks down. Among Democrats, 56% identified COVID as number 1, but look at the healthcare number, 35% listed as one of the top 2 issues. Racial justice, 3rd, climate change, and jobs in the economy, tied for about 4th. Among Republicans, jobs in the economy, 41%, COVID, 27, down dramatically from how Democrats view things. Healthcare still in number 3, but down from Democrats, 21%. Taxes in the budget, 17, and law and order, 14. Finally, independents. COVID is number 1 among independents, That's an important factor there, 39%. Jobs in the economy in second place. Healthcare still solid in a third place. Climate change at 18%, and crime and public safety at 13%. How do people feel about their personal finances? Overall, 25% say that they're doing better than they were 4 years ago, but 34% said that they're worse off, and 37% said they're doing about the same. However, when we get to Biden supporters, only 11% said better off, 44% said worse off, and 41% about the same. As opposed to Republicans, 42% better off, only 21% worse off, and 36% about the same. How about economically in your community? Because this is a major factor we discovered in the 2016 race. Overall, 21% said that their community is doing better off. 43% said worse off, and 27% said about the same. Now, among Biden supporters, 7% better off in their community, for their community, 59% worse off. But among Trump supporters, it was 37% who said their communities are better off, 26% worse off, and 27% about the same. There is an awful lot in this poll. Are we done with the slides, I think, Jer? Nope. How many have lost a job due to COVID? We see that that is at 21%. It had been higher. But among Biden supporters, 19% lost a job. 81% said no. And among Trump supporters, 19%, 81%. What are your prospects for finding the job that you had? 55% said positive. That's 50% of Biden voters and 63% of Trump voters. But across the board, you have substantial numbers who are saying the prospects are negative for going back to work. Is the American dream alive and well? Only 32% say yes, alive and well. 49% said it's in a coma, and another 11 said it's dead. What about Biden supporters? 9 say it's alive and well. 67% in a coma, 15% dead. But among Trump supporters, 59% believe it's alive and well, 31 in a coma, and 3% say it's dead. Will the American dream bounce back? This is among those who said that it's in a coma. 57% overall said that it would. That's 49% of Biden supporters and 73% of Trump supporters. What you are noting here, needless to say, is the degree to which how people feel is tainted or colored by who they're going to vote for, what their ideology is, what political party preference they have. And what path should America take? Jared, do you want to take this?
Yep. So I'll just, this is the last slide here. And we offered the likely voters in the survey yesterday 2 options, statement A or statement B. I've got here a great reset versus revisit age-old principles, but let me break down what the great reset was in the survey as the respondents heard it. It was basically, paraphrasing the statement, should America accelerate into the future with a great reset of the system, which would result in Medicare for all, universal basic income, and those sorts of policies versus the other option, revisit age-old principles, revisit age-old beliefs, which would be including market forces over government regulators, rebuilding Main Street, and flourishing small and medium-sized businesses. So overall, 40% of our survey respondents went with the Great Reset. 47% said revisit age-old principles. 13% were not sure. But when we break it down by those who say they'll vote for Biden, he has a solid majority here, 55% of those who agree with the direction, the path America should take, the Great Reset, moving into the future with Medicare for all, universal basic income, and the Green New Deal, versus only 30% who said revisit age-old principles. But if you look at the Trump voters, 65% agree with revisiting age-old principles, 23% agree with the Great Reset. The basic gist behind this question was, I believe that come election day, and as well as those who've already voted, they're not necessarily voting for the two candidates, Joe Biden or Donald Trump, but rather what they represent, which is bigger than Biden and Trump. And that, of course, is the Great Reset versus revisiting age-old principles. So that's our PowerPoint. And again, if you look below, there's a box for Q&A. And I'm going to say right now, we're going to open this up to our Q&A.
Okay. So here's the first one. Has Trump demonstrated the fragility of the American system? Is a relaunch needed with new rules? Well, that's partially been answered. I think we've been looking at the fragility of the American system for a number of years. We had one impeachment, two impeachments, from 1787 to 1869. We've had three impeachments since 1974, and two in the last 25 years. There's that. There are questions about the legitimacy of the system, and I think they're particularly coming from younger people these days. You just saw the notion of the reset. Jeremy has also asked a question that it was featured in one of our intelligentsia reports about whether we need a new constitutional convention or not. So I think in many ways, Donald Trump has been both a symptom of the fragility and a lightning rod, even enabler of that fragility as well.
Got one here. What's the status of Pennsylvania?
Okay, so we didn't poll Pennsylvania, but that's a very good question. You have a couple of polls out showing a swing towards Biden, one as high as 7 points today, a 7-point lead, I should say. Another yesterday at a 4-point lead. I don't know, in all honesty, and I think that's the only honest answer I can give about Pennsylvania. There's been some really good reporting about the old anthracite and bituminous coal regions in the east and west that have gone from Kennedy and Humphrey supporters to our Donald Trump supporters. All depends on how big the red wave is on Tuesday, and folks telling me that the fracking issue may very well have hurt. We do have a couple of polls out there over the weekend actually showing Trump ahead by 1 or 2. Okay, if the 6-point national margin indicated in this poll is correct, is there still a path for Trump to win the Electoral College? Is there a national number that would indicate that there's no electoral path to winning? Some folks are saying 6 points is the cusp. He won the Electoral College actually substantially with small victories, small margin victories in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Some are arguing in their models that he can lose by as many as 6 percentage points and still win the Electoral College. That could be true. That could indeed be true with big voter turnouts, say in California, New York, Illinois, Georgia, some of the larger states, North Carolina, but still pull off Pennsylvania, maybe North Carolina and Texas. So, or another Midwestern state. But I think, I've only scratched on envelopes some math. I think once you go beyond a 6-point lead, then it becomes pretty difficult. But yeah, there is a path at about 5 or 6. Do we expect a blue wave? Well, 2 ways to define that. In terms of voting, we've already had a blue wave. I think that huge turnout, we see even in our poll, it reflected with a 17-point lead among early voters. Now, if you're defining a blue wave as coattails, that's very possible. If in fact this turns out to be a 6-point lead in the popular vote, but that it's spread out fairly evenly to include Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Iowa, then you could see Democrats picking up as many as 6 states. Frankly, my looking at where the numbers are at as of now, these are not our polls in the states. It looks to me like the Dems will pick up the Senate, but a bigger blue wave, I wouldn't call that at all. I don't know.
I like this question, Dad. Who's likely to win?
Okay, I'll talk in pollster talk. Is Joe Biden definitely, very likely, somewhat likely, or not likely to win at all? I think Joe Biden is somewhat likely to win. The follow-up question is Donald Trump definitely, very likely, somewhat likely, or not likely at all to graciously lose? And the answer, I think, is probably not at all likely to lose. I don't think that I think we're going to have a mess tomorrow night and through the end of the week and even beyond. And that's not a partisan comment. That's public statement wise.
Here's another one. And we've talked a lot about this on our podcast. Are there hidden Trump voters?
We have no way. We have no way of knowing. Anecdotally, you hear that, but you also hear, even as late as last night, reported on 60 Minutes, hidden Biden voters who live in Trump suburban neighborhoods who don't want to admit. That is just Bermuda Triangle for pollsters. I doubt it. Not when you see 90+% support among Trump supporters, 90+% support among Biden voters. If they are out there, I don't know that they're enough to make a difference. The preferences among the majority appears to align with Trump and Trump voter values. Does this suggest that there could be a Trump victory? It suggests that there could be a Trump victory. It is not out of the realm of possible. I have problems, I have to tell you, with these models that come up at 96% chance that Biden wins, and all these various, gaming models that are used. We pollsters don't poll data. We poll people. And Richard, in your question, you've hit on a very good question. We only know what people tell us and tell us how they feel and how intense they are. The numbers indicate to me that Biden's in a decent, but not total position to win the popular vote. But the values tell me that we're split. And as Jeremy points out in his very good question about the reset versus traditional values, remains to be seen. But Richard, there are other variables here. There's personality, there's demeanor, there's the economy, there's the handling of COVID.
Also, we have here two questions, which I'm going to consolidate. This is on the foreign policy front. How do you explain the apparent lack of voter interest in foreign affairs at a time of much U.S. foreign economic and military involvement? And then we'll throw this one in there too. How much do Americans care what the world expects of them?
Okay, that's a good point. Both good questions. So first of all, in terms of foreign policy, I wouldn't say that people don't care. You know, when it dominates the news agenda, Americans care about Syria. They care about Russia and China. But at this point in time, you know, during the fall, how do you get foreign policy in there when you have COVID, when you have the economy? You always have healthcare. That is always in the top three. Race and race relations and climate change dominated pretty much. These are really top issues among younger voters. And remember, about 39% of the people who have or will show up to vote are under 40 in this election. And so, yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say they don't care about foreign policy. They're just crowded out by other dominant issues. What was the second part of the question?
Oh, about whether or not, where was it? I'm sorry. I think you answered it in when you, about Americans caring what the world expects for them. That was the second part of the question.
Okay, what polling dynamic unknowns or uncertainties at this time in our society keep me up at night? Boy, there are last minute decision makers. But, you know, I'll tell you why it doesn't keep me up at night. It's dynamic and fluid. It's not like it used to be, where you had a certain percentage of Democrats, certain percentage of Republicans, 95% voted for their guy, and there were a handful of independents. Now you have a lot of independents, a lot of different sources of information, people who aren't paying attention and won't pay attention until they get behind the screen. There are technical issues. When I started in the business, 65% response rates in 1984. And I've watched them go down. Our industry needs to be able to use newer methodologies. And our public and our media need to understand what polls can tell us and what they can't tell us. 2016, the major statewide polls captured a downward spiral for Hillary Clinton. Even if they still had her leading by 3 percentage points in Pennsylvania, the day before the election, they had her up by 11 points 10 days earlier. To me, they nailed Pennsylvania. They caught the downward trajectory, just as they did in Wisconsin. And so I guess mainly what keeps me up at night is that I wish that everybody understood what a poll really tells us, as opposed to, were you off 0.3%? Were you off by 2.1 percentage points? Let's be realistic.
Did you ask a question on the need for unity? I don't believe in this most recent one we did, but in the October 2nd one that we came out with, we had a series of questions on what could voters get behind. I actually covered this in the 9th issue of the Intelligence here, which was titled "The Search for Common Ground." There were two things we wanted to test. One was how would Americans feel about term limits for Congress and for even federal bureaucrats. You don't usually hear that thrown into that question, but we added that for congressmen and congresswomen, senators, and federal bureaucrats. Off the top of my head, it was something like 85% of voters overall could agree to that. Another one was about corporate PAC money and removing it altogether from campaigns and elections. And again, an intensity of like 85% of voters could get behind that. So that's most recently, that's all I can think of in terms of where we can find unity. Do you have any other thoughts on some of the polling we've done?
Yeah, and I've done this over the years, about unity and common ground. Substantial majorities want unity and common ground. The problem becomes that they want the unity and common ground on the basis of what their party believes, not on the basis of a genuine coming together. So, if I'm pro-guns, pro-life, and so on, then yes, there should be unity. Everybody should be pro-guns and pro-life, or pro-choice, anti going to war in Iraq, or whatever. Now, here's a question. The question from Dave Gatton. 70 in this poll, 74% chose stability over disruption. I thought that was very telling. Now, just thinking like a pollster, do any of them see stability coming from Donald Trump? It could be that they identify him with older values and a strong leader. But in terms of that stability versus disruption, it's overwhelming for stability. Here's the one. You identified a large voting bloc, young voters, with a breakout of 53-27, totaling 80%. Yeah, no, not 20% undecided. This is where you got 10% for Joe Jorgensen and about 4% or so for Howie Hawkins. We're going to make the crosstabs available on our website, and you can check these out for yourself. Just taking a lot of time to go back and forth and looking those up during a live broadcast like this. Here's one. Do you believe voter suppression? Where did that go? May be a factor in the final election results that would not be reflected in your results. I suppose we do see a lot of folks defying voter suppression and doing it in ways that either showing up early and waiting a long time or fighting in court. I suppose it could be a factor, but so far we don't have any evidence. Will the Democrats lose seats or gain seats in the House? It's looking to me like a small change and gain for now. But remember, House races can be pretty volatile. You do generally have high rates of undecideds, even this late in the campaign.
Let me just consolidate too, because they're similar. Given the results of your, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Is there any chance of the country knowing the winner by Wednesday morning? And then another question, John, what do you mean when you say that there will be a mess tomorrow night through the week and even beyond?
I think the second question first, and then I will get to the first question. I think that the president has made clear that if he's close or ahead by tomorrow, and remember, election day voters will be counted almost immediately, that he will either declare victory or make a statement saying that he's on the road to victory and move as a re-elected president. And then it has been made clear that his lawyers are ready to challenge the results. Now, that's before the pre-election votes in most of the states are even counted yet. And as you can see from our polling and that of others, Biden is heavily favored, and Biden seems to be ahead in almost every pre-election poll in the popular vote. And so it looks like there will be a battle royal over the actual legitimacy of the election, or the legitimacy of a Biden victory. But whatever it is, a lack of clarity, court fights, you know, we're not only not likely to know what's going on, but I think given the intensity of a minority of both parties who are not willing to accept if the other guy wins, that we could have some serious trouble. I hope that answers your question, Paul.
What about Biden's lead compared to Hillary Clinton's lead at this point?
So at this point in time, we did see Hillary leading by less. So this is the day before the election, leading by less overall. So it was at this point that the Monday before the election, she was at about an average of 2.5% lead. But of great importance was the fact that we did see her lead in the various battleground states, including New Hampshire, really dissipate in some instances by as much as 9, 10, or 11 points over the last few days, to the point where those states were close and in play. So to some degree now, we have fluctuations among different pollsters in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, Texas. And so I guess you can say statewide, we don't have enough clarity.
What about the breakdown of the urban centers versus the heartland? I mean, in our demographics, we call it's a city, rural, and suburban.
Yeah, we have those. Again, I can look those up now and take the time, or they will be published in the crosstabs, which you'll find on our website as soon as we have some time to post them all. Will we do a poll on who felt they were disenfranchised and who would they have voted for? No, but it's an interesting one, Mark. And if we get a sponsor, we'll be happy to do it. Nazara, do you think the results will be cleared at the night of election? If now, no, I don't. I mean, I think that we'll be able to do modeling and make assumptions, but in terms of accurate count, I think it's going to take at least 3 days. I know some states enable, Arizona, for example, election officials they're starting to count already, some of the early voters. Others, the ballots can't be touched, early ballots, until the day after. State like Pennsylvania, I'm hearing, can take as many as 4 days. And that, of course, is a vital state. Here. With the historic early voter turnout in mail and absentee, how do you think the delay of ballot will affect the acceptance of election results? Yeah, I had answered that before, but in a different context. Yeah, I think the longer this takes, and with an election, we're generally accustomed to knowing who won the election that night or the next morning. But I think the longer it takes, the more this takes to fester. We have a question in one of our polls about this election and your mental health. And what was it, Jared? About 86% who said that this is a very tense and emotional election.
Very important to their future and to their mental health, both at that level.
Yeah. Given the results of your latest poll, led by Biden, what will happen in the battleground states and who will win the Electoral College? Battleground states are too close. And honestly, Michael, they're not really trending. Like I said, a couple of polls out in Pennsylvania, Biden leading 4 and 7. Couple of polls out in Pennsylvania, he's down by 2. The average is pro-Biden, but not enough, average of just about 2 percentage points to make a call. Same thing with Florida. I mean, Florida is just always like that. I do not believe under any circumstances that, well, I shouldn't say that. Under most circumstances, that we'll know who wins tomorrow evening. The circumstance is a very likely Biden win if the count tomorrow night is close or Biden is actually ahead, which isn't likely. But if that's the case, then, you know, I think everybody has a sense that those early ballots are going to take a long time. Are the mail-in ballots the hanging chads of 2020? Well, I think that's how they're being positioned, and that they can't be trusted, even though state officials and federal officials are saying that they have next to no problems with those. Although 60 Minutes did report yesterday, they talked to 5 people who voted by mail in one of the primaries. And they were asked, were you satisfied with how your vote was handled? All 5 said yes, but 60 Minutes reported that all 5 of their ballots had been thrown out because of an irregularity. So there's a chance for a mess. Okay. Here's one that came in on chat. Over the last few weeks, we've seen large, somewhat spontaneous pro-Trump demonstrations, including a large caravan across the DC Beltway. Is this an enthusiasm gap, a serious warning for Biden, or is there a silent majority? I mean, that's a great question. Here's my history. I never use turnouts at demonstrations, turnouts for a candidate as a sign of how many votes they're going to get. I learned that back as an organizer for McGovern in 1972. He wouldn't come to our congressional district unless we could assure 10,000 people. So we had to do a 100-mile radius and pay people to come in on buses from cities, you know, 2.5, 3 hours away. We got our 10,000 people, which is about as many votes. McGovern came. That's about as many votes as he got in our congressional district. Crowds don't really, I don't think they tell me anything at all. Polls do. How do you think the delay of ballot counting will, we already did that one. Okay, is there anything else in the queue there, Jer?
No.
Anybody whose question I didn't get to? Thanks so much, everybody. If there's anything else, Jer, why don't we just tell them right now before we sign off what we're going to see, you know, on our website later.
Yeah, so we're going to have later today, we're going to have the detailed methodology. We're going to have the crosstabs of all the questions, 50 questions, and all the demographic breakdown. And tomorrow we're coming out with issue 11 of the intelligence here. So we'll have that. That's going to be on our website tomorrow. And I think that's about it. I would just say if anybody here, any of the participants haven't signed up for our email blast, get in touch with me, Jeremy at johnzogbystrategies.com. I'll add you to our email blast. We send out stuff pretty frequently, especially in this environment. So, and we got a couple. What you want to take the? What
role will I assume that the Supreme Court play? Okay. Personally, I hope none. That's not a good way to run a circus. But if it does, well, we will just have to see. I mean, it certainly favors Donald Trump. It has been already, and now there is a new pro-Trump appointee, and you know, we'll have to see whether or not she recuses herself from some decisions. We got a lot of nice kudos from people. We appreciate that. We appreciate your support. And we hope you'll tune in again when we do this again. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Take care.
Ryan, thank you so much, Ryan Miller. This is great.
Glad it worked, guys. There's a couple questions in the chat. I know, just so you guys don't miss it. Richard is Jeremy. Richard Pollock is asking for your email address.
Oh, good.
I'll put it in the Q&A.
I will.
The chat, right? I'll put it
In the
right
chat. You want me to DM him?